right, so we are here in North Austin. We are at the J.J. Pickle Research Campus, which is an extension. It's a research campus of UT Austin. It is exclusively a campus for research facilities. It's actually limited access, so we're not able to go inside and look around, but we took a look around the edge, and we're out here by the sign today. Just a little bit of background, this site was formerly a magnesium processing plant that was owned by the military during the Second World War. And afterwards it was decommissioned, and LBJ helped the University of Texas system acquire about 400, I think later 470 acres of land to do sort of high-tech applied research here north of the city. Initially it was called the Balcones Research Center, and then later renamed after legislator J.J. Pickle. So that's where we're at. And part of the reason that we've come out here today, there's a number of facilities within this larger campus complex that have to do with the Internet of Bodies, social impact investing, and computer model simulations. This area is a center for nano electronics research, and also they have a facility here that is working to scale the creation of nanomaterials. So there's been a lot of advances in nanotechnology and two-dimensional materials, but they're still trying to figure out how to increase production and consistency of quality in that production. So all of the nano elements that will be part of these nano machines that will be integrated into living systems, both human and other beings on the planet, are being processed and explored on this campus. The other thing that is very close to my heart as an education activist is that there is a supercomputer center in here, and it's also the data centers where all of the education data is stored for the state of Texas. Now, my friend Lynn has said that Texas has done about the most data mining of children as possible, and next to California, Texas has one of the largest populations of children. So when you're looking at human lives as a data resource commodity, Texas is really a target, and they've been doing this data mining for a very long time, and the supercomputer systems, of which continue to be upgraded, go along with that. And these systems are for both modeling education data as well as modeling workforce and labor economics data. All sorts of other simulated data too, weather, geopolitics, many other, the supercomputer is used for many other modeling scenarios, both on a consulting basis and for the state of Texas. So when we start to understand children, even very young children, as that the government is considering them a commodity within a larger geopolitical construct, and that therefore envisioning these children as data that they can then use predictive modeling both for impact markets and then to guide future economies that are driving this fourth industrial revolution is really unsettling to think of, that our children are being considered in this way as really fodder, as data for the supercomputing systems. So in 2009, there's a professor in the education school. He's since retired and moved on to a job around digital equity, I believe. But he was initially at the University of New Mexico, and then came to UT Austin and spent much of his career here in learning technology. His name is Paul Resta. And I had come across Paul Resta a number of years ago researching an entity called the National Laboratory for Education Transformation. And that program was based in California, I believe, UC Santa Cruz, and I'll have to double check that. But it had tentacles into many different areas, including relationships with the San Diego Supercomputing Center, with Los Alamos Research National Labs, with Argonne National Labs. And I couldn't at the time, this was before I fully was starting to better understand artificial intelligence and machine learning and all of these systems, why the education space would have these relationships with high-level computer modeling and simulations. So Paul Resta was one of the partners, and UT Austin and their Education Data Center was a partner in this National Laboratory for Education Transformation that looked to be pursuing early on blockchain identity for children and data optics for modeling gaps in education data that would be used to feed these social impact markets. And so when I loop back around on this trip to Austin, it reminded me of a conference that I had found online called Redefining Teacher Education for Digital Age Learners. And this is it was a conference that was actually done in 2009. It was hosted at UT Austin by Paul Resta, but it included representatives from the American Federation of Teachers, as well as a number of interests that were aligned to workforce aligned education and virtual reality education. And I remember listening to some of the videos. Actually, it also included a representative, Marina Patru, I think, from OECD. So it was global in scope. And as a parent who was just wading into this based on just school closures, and I knew the misuse of data around privatization of education in children, I couldn't believe some of the things I was hearing on the videos that recorded in this 2009 conference, including Susan Patrick of INACOL, which is one of the leading proponents for online digital education, saying that, you know, in the near future, children would be putting on virtual reality headsets and doing field trips to the Louvre Museum. And that would be a primary access point to education was through these digital venues, and that we needed to get all of the teachers online for this new version of education. And I found it quite shocking. Again, this was 6 years after the initial conference in 2015. I had a hard time imagining what that would look like. But shortly thereafter, you know, we started seeing Google Cardboard. We started seeing the introduction of VR field trips. We started seeing all of the Chromebooks. We started seeing like really cheap version of educations that were about data mining and creating children as consumers of digital content rather than creators of their own future, using their own imagination, synthesizing their own information. They were being put into a story that was being guided by online education. And the more I came to understand about artificial intelligence and what Peter Stone is working on at the Gates Dell, you know, Computer Science Center, is looking at learning agents, right? And that really, in a respect, our children, all of our children, as they consume these digital media and are fed into the supercomputing systems, potentially with a future of nanoelectronics embedded in them with these Internet of Bio-Nano things that are being pursued. So it's not just interfacing with a tablet or a phone or a Chromebook or a VR headset, but literally embedded into their living systems, that they become fed into these computer simulations that are for geopolitical reasons and that are for systems of controlling the masses and controlling what the future is going to be, not allowing people to be autonomous agents. That they will be not only learning agents, but really the unwilling teachers for AI that is seeking to become sentient, that is seeking to have a soul, I think. And in that, it is soul theft of the children, and the children of Texas are a primary target because of these facilities that go way back to the 1950s. And then later in the 1980s, this center became significant as the United States started to compete with Japan in the personal computing and the high function computing systems research and development. That these areas in Texas, which you don't necessarily consider the role of Texas in high technology, at least for the standard person, maybe if you're in the field you do, I was not aware of Texas's position in this high performance computing system. So that's why we're out here at this Pickle Research Campus, is really going back to the origins of educational technology on the foundation of defense interests and interests that are sequestered away behind gates that are not accessible to the public, where the futures of our children are being planned out, and we don't have a say at this point in time because people don't even know what questions to be asking about these education data centers and the computing simulations that are being run on children and their educational digital twins. I mean, essentially that is the essence of what it is to be a unique being in the world, and that connection to whatever that greater source is. I mean, and that is something that a machine can never have. A machine can't have a soul. A machine can have, infinite information. It can model, but it will always be counterfeit because it can't. It's like the, oh gosh, what was it? Which was the one, the Tin Man, that have a heart? You know, like it's not there. The Tin Man, you know, like ultimately, I guess they try to get the heart at the end, but I don't think that the AI can get the heart space. It can't get, it will make predictive models of expected behaviors based on what it thinks humans are, what it thinks the natural world is, but it can never calculate all of the random things that happen. It could not count on us showing up and saying, refusing the singularity in front of the Pickle Research Campus. I mean, I think there's no logical reason that I would be doing this right now, like in the logic of the market or the logic of what, you know, behavioral economics. There's nothing in it for me to be here trying to tell this story other than I don't want the world on blockchain put into a computer, because it's more than that. And it's, even with all the data that is being fed into the computing centers, it's never going to get at the essence of what it is, the energy, the living energy of a being in communion with other beings and the greater cosmos, the creator of this beautiful earth, in my opinion.